Well, we're talking about the creation and institutionalization, I should say, it's not tripping off my tongue, of the office of the opposition. What will it take? UDA to back creation of opposition office. And this is what we are looking at with the panelists I've created first time this morning with Dr. Isaac Kalua Green, who is the party leader of the Green Thinking Action Party. Also, we do have with us Ambrose Weda, who is an advocate of the High Court. We have Churchill Suba, who is the executive director of the Kenya National Civil Society Congress. And of course, we do have with us as well Kipruto Arap Kirwa, who is a politician and also the former minister in the Ministry of Agriculture. And that is the topic at hand. The president has indicated that amendments to the constitution shall not be given priority. The creation of office of the opposition leader shall unnecessarily strain the country's resources. This is one of sentiments there from the Senator Cherugai. Let's just continue pace with that conversation. Yes, we were with you, and you had asked a pivotal question.
Yes, I was next. If I remember.
He had not finished.
Oh, yeah,
because he posed a question.
Okay.
Is the function of the opposition just to criticize the government?
I think we need to take it up to a different level. If we take it up for Kenyans to understand the role of opposition, I think our country will get to higher ground. The current belief is that opposition does not get access to government funding. Opposition does not bring in development because development goes to those who are in power and in government. Yet we have in a situation that is very clear, our government, we have devolved functions, we have devolved funds. And you can imagine if the opposition was working right. We are complaining about which money they are going to use. But let's ask ourselves, how much money are we losing in corruption? More than 30%. If the opposition was right, if we were driven by what is good, if we followed up what our constitution and where it has taken money and development and strategic plans for the government based on what we are supposed to achieve, you will find that the role of the opposition need to be funded like never before because they are standing for what is right. The National Assembly and all the assemblies, Senate and all that are doing their roles in the best way possible. That is the way to run a nation and to give confidence to everyone. At the moment, it's just fear. Come on, let's join the government. Come on, let us get this so that we can be in power. Oh, we have been locked out for the next 5 years. We will never succeed. But that is not the reality. And it is the role of every leader to try and explain to the people. Because who is government? Government is me and you, Debal.
Indeed. Churchill Suba.
Yes, you know, when we say, as the Constitution so provides, that the Republic of Kenya shall be a multi-party democratic state. Now that state is not complete because people confuse the state with government. That state includes the institutions of parliament, the institutions of the judiciary. The military, of course, is part of the state, the coercive arm of it, that is at the disposal of the president. And we are saying that seeing some of these institutions beyond certain individuals, part of the problem that Weda has is that he never sees things beyond, Raila Odinga. Raila is here today, would want a strong opposition even when he decides to retire. And retiring is not, it's not for Weda to appeal to Raila to retire. It is not Weda who invited Raila into politics. He was born and found Raila already there. And of course, in the fullness of time, he will call it a day. But what we are talking about here are institutions of governance that will make Kenya a true multi-party democratic state. And we have seen some of the maneuvers that undermine that provision of the Constitution, that aspiration of Kenyans that we adopted in 2010. And we are saying that, why can't we move it to the next level? Is it wrong merely because it has been proposed by Azimio? as far as weather is concerned? Is it wrong merely because it was part of the Building Bridges initiative? Who have been the first to implement proposals in the BBI? Is Musalia Mudavadi not Chief Cabinet Secretary, a position that had been proposed in the Building Bridges initiative? The country, including those in government, have come to accept that these things were not necessarily bad. It's only that they would have given some other side political mileage. So that was the politics at that time. But the reality now is that the president himself, and I remember, even when he was invited to Chatham House when he was deputy president, he decried the fact that the opposition had literally been, compromised at the time as a result of the handshake. And so in response to this, those in the opposition have taken the bold initiative to say, now that the president himself has implemented some aspects of the Building Bridges initiative, why can't we also pick this one and run with it? And I think the fact that it is gaining currency across the board is very important, is something that should be lauded. They feel like Senator Cherargei should be told that representing Nandi County, should depict the bravery of Koitalel Arap Samuel. We don't want sycophants like him. That is the county where, the late Muge came from. We want to see heroes, not sycophants like him. We must move with the time, and the president himself also has, is called Samuel. So we want to see that boldness, that it sought to resist, colonial rule. And so, speaking out of turn for Senator Cherargei, for me, is unfortunate. But being a young man who may not have fought for freedom, including the second liberation, he can be forgiven, but also taught to learn and be fairly faster in learning that the country has since moved on. We are a multi-party democratic state, and we are walking the talk of institutionalizing that political pluralism that recognizes that here is a leader using the 2022 elections as a case and assuming the figures were accurate, who only lost by 200,231. Now, if you say the monies will be drawn from the exchequer, what is this, the exchequer, that we keep on, treating as if it is a preserve of the state? The exchequer is public resources. Kenyans are already funding political parties, including any that has an MCA, receives state funding. So long as you have one elected leader, you are entitled. Yes, you are receiving.
You receive it?
Yes. So okay. If we have advanced to that level, what is this big deal about, Cherargei and his whining about, state resources? Who said Duale should come back and remind people that hii pesa sio ya wazazi wetu, pesa ya umma.
Let's hear from Kipruto, because also looking at that editorial cartoon that was there this week on the strength of Raila, the metamorphosis of Raila since he began his politics, it seems that he's losing his gravitas, his strength. You can look at the cartoon there on the screen. You have Raila, strong arm when he was a young man, but now, where he is right now, he's looking very limp. As you can see, it's a limp hand represented there. And this also goes to ask the question of how strong will this opposition be? We have people who are bolting out already from Azimio, joining Musalia Mudavadi, especially from, the western region. So far, we've seen a lot of legislators, trooping back to ANC and working with ANC.
Yeah, it takes us back to what I was saying earlier, that the mistake that we make is that you assume if you're in government or you supported a certain formation and that formation formed the government, you assume that you have reached Canaan. And those who are in alternative formation, they are destined to hell. That is where the rain started beating us. Otherwise, the way I understand politics and the way politics is all over the world is that opposition and government are the same coin, two sides of the same coin. Now, back not to Gerard Gay, because Gerard Gay, I think, is of a certain nuisance value when it comes to serious politics in Kenya. When we go back to the foundation of our democracy for 50 years, as a nation called Kenya, we operated on the Westminster style of leadership or government, despite the fact that much of it was almost one-party state, including making it in the Constitution by amending Section 2 by having Section 2A. Now, we sort of wanted to move drastically to the American system. I'm not suggesting any of the systems are perfect systems. After all, they were formed by individuals like us about 500 years ago, and some 200 years ago, like the American system. My take is that the reality in Kenya, and Ambrose Weda will tell us better, because there is what we say the sources of law. And the sources of law includes certain historical perspectives of a nation like Kenya. So we cannot run away from the Westminster system, and we also have embraced to a certain extent the American system. What do I have in mind? I have in mind the fact that for us to have a functioning opposition, we must institutionalize by creating the necessary structures, and presence of those structures must be funded by the same exchequer. To borrow from Dr. Kalua, we lose a third of our budget every year to corruption, thanks to lack of effective opposition. And therefore, if there was effective opposition, with even shadow cabinet ministers, I'm not suggesting that I should be a shadow cabinet ministers, those ministers will be able to put on check the substantive ministers or CSS in the government of the day. In that way, we are even able to improve policy, because it's not a question of just doing audit as the opposition. You can also improve in terms of policy formulation, such that by the time the minister takes that policy to the cabinet for consideration, he has also been informed by alternative views from the opposition through an interactive process. I remember when I was minister, my good friend Franklin Bett was chairman of Agriculture Committee, I think one of the first chairmen of these departmental committees. And he used to spend a bit of time touring various institutions under my ministry, and once he gets back, he calls me to a meeting, and they brief me on some of the challenges they found in the field. And then I take to the ministry, and we infuse their views into the policy that we want, or into the direction that we want to move as a ministry. In that way, we were able to have some kind of complementary working relationship. That should be the case with the opposition. That should be the case with the government, so that you don't look at the opposition as people who are only interested in fighting you, and you become lethargic to any form of criticism. Just to depart from my good friend Weda, if we don't assist William Ruto, increasingly is moving towards being too hypersensitive about those who hold alternative view to his view. And that's dangerous for any leader, because there is no leader who has monopoly of knowledge or information. Even the best of leaders, they still have to rely on people who tell them the truth. Remember the king was told he was naked by a young child? That is the danger that the current regime may run into, because already they are defensive about what the opposition is about to say, and listening to them, even about this hustler fund, they are already protective and defensive about it, as if this is the first fund that has been brought to Kenya for the first time since independence. There are so many funds that were brought to Kenya, they collapsed, and we know the story of banks. When you tell us there's no committee and there's no secretariat. So I hope that the technology is going to do audit and give us results.
Indeed, we'll come to that. We'll come to the Hustler Fund. So the question that I will pose again, if you finished, Mheshimiwa, is What will be so different with actually institutionalizing this opposition that it's not really offering that particular sort of service right now in government? Do you have the minority? Because I fail to understand it. To increase the numbers of legislators, only what you want is an official office.
An official office, and an office is not just the space. An office must have a nuclei, and that nuclei must have even a secretariat. And that nuclei must have some coordinating mechanism.
I understand now. You're talking about the structure of this office. What I'm asking is, what will be an import that will be so different that the opposition will bring with a new structure that currently it's not being offered by the minority? That is what I feel.
You say the minority is in parliament. You know, minority leader is in parliament. But outside here, there is a reality. That and the reality dawned on us the other day when Raila made the announcement. Everybody, including the president himself, reacted spot on and said, you know, give us time. Would they react if Wandai made the same announcement? No. You saw the argument yesterday, the debate in parliament about the Cherera Force. They have become known. And the leader of majority was saying, you have been elected and you are here to make decisions as leaders. What was he trying to imply? That because we can sort you out in terms of numbers, you need to participate here and not take it out there. Now there is somebody whose influence is not being felt in that house. It's outside here. And the nature of and the structure of our government is that there will always be the leader of the coalition or party who will not have won to serve as president. And at times with such small margins as 200,000, 231. Because that was the difference between the president and the group that lost. Now, what do you do with such a person? They can cause a great deal of trouble if they so choose to, if the situation so demands. And that's why we are saying, because they have such influence and are able to influence government policy, let's institutionalize, let's support it so that they are able to effectively deliver on that mandate. We are also saying that in order for the opposition not to be depleted and reduced into smithereens, and especially when we have individuals who may not believe and have no track record to demonstrate that they have ever believed in multi-party democracy, as the situation may portend now, it is important to institutionalize this beyond the current occupants of those positions. Going forward, we may end up with what Kenyans may have desired over time. When will we have, you know, two strong party system as there is in the United Kingdom, as there is in the United States of America, and so on and so forth? Those institutions did not grow out of nothing. They grew out of conscious, deliberate actions that recognize that for a multi-party system of governance to prevail and in a sustainable manner, then there ought to be resources being contributed from public offers towards their institutionalization.
Can I just hold on, Dr.
Yes, I think let's get this thing clear. Let's separate the quest to search for a job or create an office for individuals. The last time we checked, Hillary Clinton had more votes than Trump. Under this constitution, this one, the one we voted for, we wrote ourselves and voted for, and is in place, the role of checking government was given to the people's representatives, parliament. Even sharing money on the box is shared by your representative. The budget is taken to them and they say, we are not giving this, we are not giving that, we are giving this, we are giving that. That is their role. The problem is, we have generally elected people who are more loyal to party leaders, who are more loyal to their tribes, who are more loyal to where their bread is buttered than the mandate for which they are given. That is why there's a feeling that there's a lacuna. Over the years, Kenya has advanced this far. Even the democratic system has advanced this far. Even this constitution has come this far. Not because we had an official position somewhere leading it. It emerges. But we envisage under this constitution that after an election, we set down to work. Our representatives do their work. The judiciary do their work. The MPs do their work. Members of the National Assembly, they do their work. The executive, they do their work. And certain aspects of the work they do, they come back to us under what is called public participation. So you bring in education policy like this, you are required to consult us. If you don't, we go to court and the court says there was no public participation. And nearly everything has been brought down for lack of participation. So the quest for making an office for somebody because he had how many votes, and that if he was not, let me assure you under this constitution, anytime, even today, if President William Samoei Ruto was to decide that every male person, the left-hand finger will be cut, like this, you will not need an official position. He will meet Kenyans, he will meet the judiciary. So, for now, these things they are talking about, let us look at things in order of priority. In order of priority. Is our priority an office for Baba? Or just basic unga? If we had $1 billion shillings, do we give it to fund an office for Baba, to fund a referendum so that somebody who got I don't know how many million votes has an office, or we look for unga? I would say that what my friend has said is very sweet, but irrelevant during our times. We have elected people, let them work. If they chose to say we are helpless, if Baba is not with us, we are helpless, too bad. But let them do their work. This constitution to amend it requires money, requires time, requires energy, not at a time now when we are so hungry. We are so hungry that we are even thinking about eating GMO. We are so hungry that people are eating wild berries. Then somebody comes and says, I want to be opposition, we need this office, we need this job. Let us not design a country on that basis. This constitution was written so that we use the American system.
Thank you.
And let us allow it to take root.
Yeah, we need to wind up on it. We look at other issues as well. Let's hear from Dr. Kalua lastly.
Something also to say.
Okay, sure. I'll give it up to be honest.
Debal, I think we need to go back to what our nation has gone through over the years. Why has our country received so much support to improve livelihoods, and yet we are poorer and we are more corrupt, just as we were 50 years ago? There's something that needs to be dealt with in a very serious manner. This includes getting the nation to appreciate that we will never be all in government, neither shall we all agree to speak in one nation, in one voice at any given time. It's a matter of the majority and the minority who has their way and whose voice is heard. We need to think in a way that we are going to structure the conversations with proper public participation at every level. We need to get to a position where our country actually knows what motions are on the table of parliament at any given time, and what implications they are going to cause to all this. How does the leaders of the opposition get the information that they present. How much have we participated as Kenyans? What is the implication for all this? That structure is what we need to think of at the moment. Not necessarily because the office of opposition is not commensurate to Raila Odinga. It is an office that is beyond Raila Odinga. It is an office that is beyond what we are thinking. Because what the perception, which may not be, it's just a perception, is that opposition is to call the media and you go and speak what you have to speak. Hawa jamaa wameiba kwa hivyo tufuatane nao. And then that is ni moto ya nyasi. It just ends there. There is no proper structure that ends up adding up to following through to the end. I believe that with the money that we are losing in our budget, with the trouble that Kenyans are going through, there will be a prioritization of issues that are really affecting Kenyans. So that we are not talking on the 11th item when we have 3 or 2 items that are extremely urgent that needs to be dealt with. That can only come through a structure, a well thought out structure that involves mwananchi at their best and in a system that can be appreciated. And therefore, I believe that we need to think about this thing with that in mind. We cannot continue just making noise and failing to play roles that we are supposed to be playing at our various places.
Thank you. We wind it up with you, Churchill.
Yes. I just wanted to, and I agree entirely with the ideas of my immediate neighbor, that we need to see this as institutions of governance, beyond individuals that may be present today, that may be present tomorrow and the day after. We cannot say that because this constitution was adopted, not everybody adopted it. The current president himself opposed it, opposed even the BBI, but somehow has been the first beneficiary in both instances. He opposed the constitution. He was the first deputy president under the constitution that he opposed. Opposed the BBI, has been the first to appoint chief cabinet secretary. Again, benefiting from where he did not so. And we are saying that because of this realization, there is the constitutional aspirations and the reality. One of the searches that I think this country has been undertaking over time is the need to provide some cure for winner takes it all. And I think institutionalizing this and giving that office some teeth seeks to address, because it will mainstream the voice of such an office beyond, press conferences, beyond street protests, and giving it some teeth so that it grows into an alternative. The idea of opposition is an alternative government. A government that, and a group that can, in any moment, come into power. And so how do we strengthen, how do we synergize that office so that when, in the event it comes into power after an election, it continues with the good ideas that made the Kenyans to embrace it and remove it from the opposition to the government side. And I would want to pray, because whether here, I've realized, is fond of praying for others, but needs a lot of prayer. To see things beyond where he was born, to see things beyond his past political grievances. So can we say a solemn prayer for Weda to overcome his past political grievances, to see things beyond where he grew up, where he was born, and just to strive, and we encourage him to see things beyond Raila Odinga.
Let me say this, a very short statement here. When in our country did we ever discuss issues like a report from the Auditor General? Yet we are talking about corruption every day. And the Auditor General's office is doing a tremendous job. They need a lot of money. They must be supported to be able to continuously add value where they are going. But when did we ever discuss their report? It only comes in the newspaper once. How many Kenyans have a newspaper that can be able to be read? How and when can we bring out the issues that the Auditor General is continuously bringing about the funds that we have as our budget? These are the things that would come out if we have a structured office of the political leader of political official opposition, because there will be a structure, there will be a follow-up. Where did we reach with this report? When? How? Who was involved? What action was taken? Where has the DPP reached? How is his investigation going about this matter? And it will be itemized and brought up, but not the knee-jerk kind of reactions that we have had since independence.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Thank you. Very important that we need a voice that is opposition, that is predicated, of course, on institutionalism. And this is where the opposition is seeking to have that with a bill in Parliament. And it's just reminding me of what Martin Nimolo said, we may just pick up this. If we don't really have a voice, when we assume things will just also continue pace just the way they are. We've heard also from Mheshimiwa Kid was saying, you know, the hypersensitivity that has been projected so far sometimes needs to be put in check. And this is what he had to say. If you may just pick it up. First, they came for the socialists, and I did not speak out because I was not a socialist. Then they came for the trade unionist. I did not speak out because I was not a trade unionist. They came for the Jews, and I did not speak out because I was not a Jew. Then they came for me, and there was no one left to speak for me. So looking and going by
the King of Kings, that's incomplete.
What do you mean it's incomplete?
As we compliment the presence of God,
Yes.
there is a danger.
And when pray for weather.
Yeah, when we have people like weather. You know, 2 months ago, 500 years ago, a bishop translated the Bible from Latin to English. And that bishop was from Majd. He was eventually burned alive. Today, the Bible is written in many languages. You see, at times something may look out of place at some stage, but in the fullness of time, it becomes relevant as a way of institutionalizing and having true checks and balances. This constitution is not perfect. It was modeled on the American system, but it was also borrowed from the British system. We need to make it organically Kenyan.
We need to make it organically.
You talk about churches and what you've just raised right now. Do you know, and I just go back to my point of structuring our communication on issues that Kenyans are going through. If we had that organized system of the office of the leader of the opposition, churches would be seen to be bringing up a voice to say that this is what Kenyans are going through in my church, in my region, in my denomination, and this needs to be structured together with other church leaders. And it is seen that the Catholic Church, the various churches that we have brought out issues that can be followed. Because currently, it is every church is almost fighting for their space. Who is being seen, who is working with the president, who is not working with the president. Yet there must be a way that voices can be brought out. I think that is really what we really need to persistently push, because it is going to change our nation. There is a big opportunity, but who is brave to take this space? It has to start with you and me, because we are the government. We should not abdicate.
And maybe just to contextualize, where Martin Nimolo was actually talking about was not even in the context of a church. It was in the context of the Jews and the extermination of the Jews, where people were not speaking, right? And then this is where I actually came up with such a powerful statement at the end of the day.
It makes sense.
We need to wind up, then we'll go to other issues.
I have been very reluctant.
I hope this is a countermanding.
Yes,
because it will be
not the man from Yakach. No. The man from Yakach is stuck in one record. I'm worried about my big brother.
Why?
Honorable Kerwa.
Why?
About this preoccupation with the opposition, office of opposition, because he has been part of the success of this country. The time when we say government really succeeded, delivered, good, he was in cabinet. The Grand Coalition government and before that one. Now, that is the time historically These opposition things they are talking about, offices and so on, it was not there. They delivered, and we said that we wish they came back. Now, instead of coming with solutions that can help us, just have Wunga. They are here, including him, praising some non-existent offices, that if they came, our lives will be what? We want people who deliver, who work. The way they did it, it's here. So where did you learn this? On the way to the studio, you learned that if he had official opposition, then we would do much better. Don't be influenced by the likes of my brother Subachati. He's looking for a job for his leader, who is now in the streets with so many million votes. We want delivery. We want Kenya to unite and move. So that we can eat 3 meals a day. And we have super highways all over. Not opposition.
We need to move on. That office is not there. Why is the price of unga still high? Who has stopped the government from reducing the price of unga? The office is not there. It's a proposal. So when you have people who have never seen
it is irrelevant.
A government they did not want to work with, Egypt. You know, this is the Egypt type. When you have such characters,
what's Egypt?
Any government in power, and when there is one such character who has never seen a government he did not want to work with, he must not be allowed. He must not be allowed to use this platform to look for a job with the current government that he seems to be so keen to work with.
Wacheni weda peke yake sasa. Nitamtetea.
You know, he thinks
at least he uses the word of God, and for that he must be respected and be given what he,
you know, any government in power. You know, when people realize, and this is, you know, I like the book that was done by Moi's press man. The lesson we learn from that book is that when people discover the soft spot of a leader,
yes,
it becomes a national hobby and pastime. So people discovered that the late Moi, like people went to badmouth others, and it became a national hobby and pastime. Whether here seems to have discovered that the president, the current one, has a soft spot for prayers. So I'm not surprised that he constantly prays, that he quotes the Bible, because he wants to make a dictator of an otherwise innocent person. So I want to use this platform to caution, give the president unsolicited advice. Beware of people who want to pray for you. Beware of people who want to pray for you before you ask for it. Because they want to use the president's liking for prayers the same manner people misused Moi's liking for gossip. So be careful of the likes of weather.
All right.
Keep them at an arm's length.
Can I
respond? We will come out from this.
Weather, continue praying. Continue praying, Weather.
Weather, you don't have to respond. Just let it be. Thank you very much. We just want to listen into what also Cherera 4 is all about right now. The president has a wild card, so to speak. I mean, these guys are really making me hacking laughter here. The president has a wild card right now on the Cherera 4. What will be the way forward? Let's just listen in to what some of the deliberations that we had this week on Cherera 4.
Dennis Ndwega Ndombe discloses serious violations of the Constitution or other laws, gross misconduct, and incompetence as grounds for the removal of Ms. Juliana Wonge Cherera, Ms. Irene Cherop Maset, and Mr. Francis Mathenge Wanderi, and Mr. Justice Abonyo Nyangaya.
These commissioners are indeed people who should be in the category of criminals. People who wanted to ban our country, prodded by people who made them believe that they had power over the people of Kenya. Support the committee's report and ask the president to waste no time in dealing with people who are otherwise criminals.
The noble thing they need to do and command respect for the people of this country is owe us an apology and apologize to the people of this country, apologize to the families they would have had, and apologize to everybody that they inconvenienced.
The commissioners themselves became petitioners in favor of one candidate against a commission where they are serving commissioners.
that His Excellency the President suspends the commissioners herein pending the determination by the tribunal.
It is good for us as members of this House to send a very clear signal and strong one by sending these 4 commissioners home with immediate effect. These are people who, if they were honorable enough, would have just decided to quit the positions immediately after the announcement of the elections.
As members of that opinion say aye. Will those of the contrary opinion say nay?
Right, and those are the reactions there from Parliament in regard to the Cherera 4. Interesting editorial cartoon as well that we have today in the Daily Nation there on the weighing scale. And we're eagerly waiting to see what will really pan out to, not really today. Of course, they shall know the fate today, isn't it? Right? Or that has been already been determined with the debate.
I mean, you see, they are already criminals.
Some discipline.
You see, Debal, this is part of the continuing discipline that I've always had in this platform. Those MPs who spoke, and I've seen all of them, they have been speaking on the pressings of Parliament, but that was a Kenya Kwanza parliamentary group meeting. I've never seen any voice to the contrary. The chair of JLAC was one of the lawyers defending Ruto's win. I mean, at what point, and this is something that needs to be discussed, including with the lawyers like Ambrose Weda, at what point do you invoke the principle of conflict of interest? Because Chapter 6 speaks about public and state officers avoiding, to the best of their abilities, where there is conflict of interest. The chair of JLAC, if you brought, proceedings of the Supreme Court on the contested, presidential victory, you will see the chair, one of their advocates, sitting in for the side that was pronounced to have won. Now he is sitting presiding over a committee that goes on to recommend, honestly, is there justice? And even if justice has been done, has it been seen to have been done? So what I've seen here is a Kenya Kwanza parliamentary group meeting, sitting within the pressings of Parliament and therefore acquiring that title of Parliament. But all those who spoke are people with vested interests.
But just hold on a minute.
People who are acting under instruction. Because
just touch me a second. Because if you say that we had the constitution of JLAC, they compromised because the Azimio members in JLAC also walked away. So what were you expecting?
Which is their democratic right. Which is their democratic right,
So if they have a sway in
the right to freedom of association also has the connotation of the right not to associate. So the people in the Azimio side saw a group that is so hell-bent on pursuing what they have been instructed to achieve, yet, in this country, the Constitution says that everyone has a duty to protect this Constitution, and I like it that you have given us copies of this Constitution. Article 3 says that every person includes the 4. Are they not persons? Yes. Individual and corporate persons. Every person has an obligation to respect, uphold, and defend this Constitution. The Cherera 4 were acting under this provision to say, if the Constitution so provides that the Commission, the IBC, shall verify that IBC is not a substitute for Chebukati. And that's what they are saying.
All right, hold it.
So I think that I do not agree with what the MPs have said. I was personally at Bomas and saw some of the things that the Cherera 4 have said. The opaqueness, even the Supreme Court in its ruling said, at what point did the chairman become the IBC? And vice versa. And faulted both, and in fact recommended that the entire commission be investigated so that recommendations, in fact they proposed certain reforms of the commission. My last comment on this is that...
Hold on to that comment, or the last one we hear from Ambrose Weda will just go. Yes.
Thank you. Debal, fortunate in this panel, I'm the only one who's given the power to read this constitution. My friend is reading it illegally. Now, this constitution
What do you mean you're given the power? Because now you're an advocate for the High Court?
Yeah, when you finish university, you are given power to read certain things. Now, he was not given power to read the law. Yeah, he was given power to read political science, not this one.
I made the constitution. He was not there.
In this case, weather needs prayers.
He needs prayers.
Allow me now to give you the expert position, not the pedestrian position. The expert position is this. We have constitutional officers that have security of tenure. That when you get in, somebody cannot just announce over the radio, umewachishwa kazi mara moja. These are judges, the attorney general, commissioners in independent constitutional offices, the presidency, members of parliament, all these things. And this constitution provides a procedure. And that procedure, for instance, if you have a problem with a judge, you will write a petition to the Judicial Service Commission. The commissioners will look at it. They'll not look at it in an investigative manner. They'll gather evidence, they'll gather material, and they look at it. If on a 50-50 basis, they say it may or may not, then every individual is entitled to due process, a fair hearing, due process. Now, for commissioners of the IEBC, they are falling under the same category protected by this constitution. So if you have a problem with any of the commissioners, then what you do a petition. You prepare a petition, you are complaint, some evidence on it, and then you take it to Parliament. Parliament will look at it objectively or subjectively. They look at it, they say, we think somehow there are grounds. If they say, we think there are some grounds, then it is over to the president to look at it, not to look at it, to appoint a tribunal and also to suspend the commissioner. It's the same as when you have a problem with a judge. It is sent to the president. He has no choice in it. He can't look at it and say, no. It is a conveyor belt. Petition, the relevant organ considers, then it is moved. It is in the constitution of the tribunal that now the commissioners will go through the allegations, will go through the process, will have evidence called, will have real evidence weighed, and then they make a decision. Again, a decision which the president himself has no choice over. If you have a problem with it, again, you go back to the court. Remember, we have removed a deputy chief justice for just pushing somebody's nose. Why? Because the JSC considered it a very big deal. A tribunal was formed, they considered a big deal. She appealed to the Supreme Court, where you are allowed to appeal. Somehow she withdrew the petition. So there is nothing very special about the Cherera for when it comes to following the due process set out in the Constitution. If whatever they did was okay, they would defend themselves. If they did, whatever they did turns out to before the tribunal that it was not okay, they will be removed. So hulabaloo and saying this was Kenya Kwanza this or that is hot air, as the Supreme Court used that word, over a process enshrined in the Constitution.
Thank you. Kirwa.
Well, it worries me when we seem to be discussing the details of what happened in Bomas and Serena. The most important thing is that this process has taken off, and it is very clear, given the pronouncements of members of parliament, the president himself, and other individuals allied to Kenya Kwanza, these are destined for the gallows. They're just baying for their blood. They just want to finish with it, therefore. And I think they want to do it in such a hurry as to precipitate an overhaul of the entire electoral commission, in the sense that the other three, their date of departure is on the 17th of January. What does it mean? It means in January, February, or March, the current president shall constitute a panel, and which panel shall determine who are going to be commissioners in the next election, and more important, in the boundary review that is taking place next year. It worries me a lot, not because I don't want the current president to enjoy certain comforts, but it makes him a de facto dictator in the process of installing himself in office and doing a bit of gerrymander of various constituencies, unless the paneling is going to be changed in a way that there will be some input from the alternative view. It is not because when I come to the studio, I'm praying for the opposition. No, I'm praying for the stability of this country. And this country can only be stable if even those who hold a view that is at variance with your own is appreciated and is taken in totality for purposes of stabilizing. Remember, the IPPG of 1997 brought some semblance of stability to Kenya. And when President Kibaki appointed, prior to 2007, a commission that presided over his elections, that almost created a taint in his process of election, and it culminated in the dispute of those election results that forced us to have a grand coalition government. What I'm saying is that the process is as good as the result. And the result can be determined by how transparent the process is. But if we want just to pay for people's blood because they had a view that was almost at variance with our own view, then we are not consolidating our democratic processes.
Thank you. Right. Let's hear from you, Dr. Then we'll get our headline thoughts. Yeah. Debal, I think my colleagues have taken it up very well so far on the Cherera 4. So I wish to take it up at a higher level in the way that I see this. There is a culture that we need to deal with in Kenya. The discussions that we are having are very important. And I think a conclusion has been arrived where we now have a team that is going to take up the IBC to the next level come the time that their contracts are coming to an end. But what I want us to focus on more is the priority of the nation. This keeps missing. We are talking of things that are not the first one, and we are putting all the efforts. And it is the same culture that you will find in the cases that have been thrown away out of court, and you start asking yourself, because the reason why a case will be thrown out would either be the fact that there are powers that are guiding the throwing out of the cases, or a situation where we have the DCI and the relevant institutions not doing a thorough job that would lead to actual prosecution of these matters. But what is most important is that there are people behind those names. There are families that are behind those names. When you tarnish their names, when you put them in a way, in a headline that you are thugs, you are this, these people are the ones that made the elections fail in this country, these people are the ones that were going to lead the nation into anarchy, and so many things. We need to be sensitive about our own people and that there are individuals behind this and protect this. Because supposing all this comes to an end and there is proof that nothing of what they are being accused ever happened, what will you do to remain, to keep them in the status that they are supposed to be as human beings? We need to change our culture. We need to take up issues in a better way. We need to prioritize. Kenyans' priority right now is totally different from what our nation is leading people at.
Thank you. I think that's a good place to leave it at. Thank you, gentlemen. I really do appreciate, because we are stripped for time. I want to actually stop for time. I want to give you time to have your headline thoughts. But I want to thank you for such a treat that we've had, especially this year on Fridays. I've really enjoyed myself. Ambrose Weda, recruiter out of Kirwa, Dr. Isaac Kalua, and Churchill Suba. Thank you so much for your dedication on making sure that at least we discuss cogent issues here every Friday as well. Thank you very much for your valued company. We want to cross over to Mombasa Road, where Brother Sally is standing by to also give us a snippet of what is happening in the world of entertainment and celebrity. That is, of course, Celebrity Chat, which is up next. Don't go away.